Let's go ahead and jump in. I got by my clock it's 1:02. So let's go ahead and jump in and get this ball rolling. First of all, I want to welcome each of you. This is Servant Leadership and the Value of Emotional Intelligence. And I hope you enjoy this session. We got an action-packed hour and a half ahead for you. We'll be presenting some material. We'll send you into a breakout room to together work on a small exercise and present a little bit more. And if we can, assuming my YouTube cooperates, we'll even close the class with a little video. So with that, let's just jump on. First of all, I want to welcome you to the course. My name is Joe Lonnie, and I am the president and the CEO of Project Management Experts. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and my background. I've been in project management now it's been over 40 years in some capacity. I know I'm aging myself. I started my career in the mid 80s, basically, working as a consultant with a very large consulting firm, an accounting firm, doing financial accounting implementations. Got a lot of good project management experience. And back in those days, they didn't teach you project management. They just assumed you knew how to manage and to lead a project. And so you had to learn on the fly. So it was probably in the 90s, I got interested in management, in leadership. I got interested in best practices on how to manage projects. I spent the rest of my career running project management offices for BMC Software. For Deltek, these are large software development companies. I spent a couple of years as an independent consultant with Amtrak, helping them support their PMO. And it was in 2008, early 2008, I decided I wanted to go out on my own and really promote good project management, good leadership, good best practices to the project management industry in the form of training. This is absolutely a great last job for me before I retire, which I'm a few years off, because I'm able to transfer my knowledge to good folks like yourself and hopefully share my successes and, frankly, my failures in project management, in leadership, and general business knowledge. We offer, as PME, we offer over 30 instructor-led courses and over 300 e-learning on-demand courses that you can take at your own pace, all in a variety of topics. So we like to offer these types of seminars occasionally. This servant leadership and emotional intelligence seminar or webinar is something I'm passionate about. And with your permission, I'm going to share a little knowledge with you today. So feel free, each of you right now, you're on mute. You are able to unmute. Our group is not so big that we can't share some information. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and jump in. All right, I'm okay with that and certainly encourage that. We hold all of our classes in a collaborative way like this. So feel free to unmute. If you feel more comfortable, you can drop down and enter the chat. Bamidele Isan is working with me on this seminar, and he'll be monitoring the chat. But most of the time, I've been doing this since COVID. I've been doing this pretty much full time, so I've got a good grasp on how to talk, how to work the mouse, how to share screens and things like that, and even monitor the chat. So, but he's offered to help me out with this. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, first thing, before we talk about servant leadership, I really need to build a case for it. I need to help you understand, on what studies have generally shown about what motivates an average team member. What makes a team member really satisfied with the work that you're asking them to do. And once you have a general background from that, then we're able to, I'm better positioned to talk about, first of all, what is servant leadership? Maybe some of you have heard that term. Maybe you don't know exactly what it means, so we're going to describe it in a little bit of detail. And then we're going to talk about what is emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is our ability to understand how we feel and be able to choose how we're going to relate based upon those feelings. So, we'll talk a little bit about emotional intelligence, and then I'm going to wind the course up with what I feel is a very important topic that needs to be discussed, especially in this day and age. The servant leader has to search for truth. We have to respect perception. And lastly, we have to recognize and crush lies and deceptions as we're leading our teams and as we're leading our organizations. So without further ado, let's jump in here. This is the concepts that we're going to discuss, have been tiptoed around and danced around for years, and many very financially successful folks are saying things like this. Richard Branson, you may know, he's the founder of the Virgin Group, and he just went into outer space, or went into space recently, and he found that he looks for people that love helping others. He looks for people that are fun to be with, that are going to enjoy the work, that are motivated. Deepak Chopra said basically the same thing. He wants to surround himself with people of character, people that are honest, people that have vision, people that are motivated. Now, he even goes the extra mile and says, hey, if you absolutely need very specific skills, technical skills, for example, that can always be outsourced. But he wants people in his orbit and his organizations that have vision and have character. And that goes along with what servant leadership is. So before we dive into that, let's talk about, if we could, what is a successful team member? Now, when we hold this actual class, this is normally a one-day course, and I'm just giving you just a small handful of the slides. We dig a lot deeper into what is a happy team member. And studies over the last 75 years, really post-World War II, have come up with a handful of conclusions. And they're basically, all these studies are basically the same. They come up with the same results. What is a good team member? A good team member wants to influence the customer, wants to make a difference with their customers, wants to improve the common good. Whatever that is, whatever products they're creating, whatever services they're providing, they want to have a sense of accomplishment, right? That they have helped improve the common good. So they're driven to achieve, they're driven to be recognized for those achievements. A good team member is confident. They take pride in their work. Whether they're building buildings, whether they're coding software, whether they're designing products, they take pride and want to take pride in their work. Recently, good studies have shown that a team member is independent. A good team member enjoys a certain amount of autonomy, meaning self-driven work, but not so self-driven that they don't enjoy working in teams and working together with like-minded people that share their vision. A good team member is passionate and excited to do the work and excited to make a difference, excited to in the products they're creating. And interesting enough, these studies have also shown that all most team members want to do is be paid fairly, right? They just want to be paid fairly. They know their limitations. They understand capitalism. They understand their role in it. And although we all want to make as much money as we can, but they're also, good team members also realistic. But they know if they're paid fairly, studies have shown this too, if they feel they are paid fairly, money comes off the table in terms of a motivating factor. So if money is off the table as a motivator, what's left? Well, everything else, right? We're free to be passionate, to be confident. We're free to take an interest in the actual work if we feel we're paid fairly. Now that's a big topic, paid fairly, and we discussed that more detail in the bigger class, but that's a topic in and of itself. So keep this in mind as we move through the rest of this hour and a half. Keep this in mind that what motivates a typical team member. So what is servant leadership? I'll let you read this, but it was started in the, I would say in the mid 70s, somewhere in there. Robert Greenleaf was a mid-level manager, maybe mid to high level manager with AT&T. And he started to realize that, hey, if we could put our emphasis on people, if we could serve people as they do their jobs, everybody could be successful. And it would make for a better world in general. And he started this Center for Servant Leadership, which still exists today. He's been dead for a number of years, but it still serves today. And it's a mindset. It's a mindset on how to lead people. Now, the opposite of servant leadership is autocracy, being an autocrat, mandating, where the team and the organization is working for you as the project manager, as the executive. They do what you tell them to do. A servant leader thinks just opposite. I'm here to help you as a servant leader. I'm here to help you succeed. And it goes back to what we call the iceberg of ignorance. It's a model that was developed by Sidney Yoshida, who was a Japanese management scientist. And he said, on an average, especially in large organizations, only 4% of the problems in the organization, the issues, are known by the executive. So most executives are not really in touch with all the problems in the organization as a whole, right? And if you're an autocrat, if you're a top-down type leader, this would terrify you. It would terrify you to know that you're blind in 96% of what's happening in your organization, right? Now, a servant leader, on the other hand, embraces this. A servant leader recognizes they know what they don't know. They may not even know what they don't know, but they embrace that. So what do? They come down to this group down here and their staff, and they say, I'm here to help you help us. So it's taking the org chart and flipping it on top and on its side. And as a leader, my job is to support these other folks down here to help them get the job done. My job also as a servant leader is to consider, is my team benefiting from the work that I've asked them to do? Is this helping their career? Are they going to leave my project more educated, more smart, more motivated than when they came to my project or my company, right? A servant leader is going to take that attitude when they motivate team members and other managers in the organization. So I'm concerned, as a servant leader, I'm concerned that not only are we getting the problem solved, not only are we meeting the mission of the project or the organization, but we're getting a lot of, I'm helping my team along the way, learn and grow. So what I'm going to do something unique here. I'm going to send you folks right into a breakout room. And I'm curious to see how you resolve this case study as a leader. And then once I'm going to ask you if you would please share your ideas, and then I'll bring you back. We'll talk about it briefly. Then I'm going to continue the discussion about servant leadership and what it is. So let's discuss this case study. Now, you are Jamie. You are the project manager here. And you are a 40-year-old project manager with 15 years project management experience. And Jamie, she is leading the biggest, most lucrative project in the company's portfolio. And your job is to develop a database that fact checks political speeches. Okay, if there is such a thing. So you're developing a database that when a politician gives a speech, the speech will run through the database and fact check the facts that are said or the things that are said by the politician. All right, so you have two team members in totally different age groups. Pat is a 58-year-old senior political analyst. He has 30 years working with various lobbyists. You know, and Pat's been around the block. He has knowledge, experience, he's passionate, he loves politics, and he loved having the opportunity to apply his skills and his knowledge to help develop this database. And this is an important thing. The team, because he has so much wisdom and knowledge, the other folks on the team tend to go to him for perspective. Now, Christine, on the other hand, Christine is relatively a newbie. She's she's a junior political analyst with 3 years experience. Okay, sure, she's a little wet behind the ears, but she's right out of college. She has a degree in political science, and she jumped at the opportunity, even took a pay cut, in order to get involved in this project where she could exercise her knowledge and passion, you know, for the political environment. Okay, so now there's your perspective. So here's the conflict. Here's the conflict. Yeah, no worries, Susan. So here's the conflict that you have to deal with. Jamie, she's been out at lunch. She comes back to lunch and she finds Christine in her office on the verge of tears, right? It seems she and Pat had a discussion, in quotes, about a historical political issue and how to enter it in the database. And Christine says to Jamie, Pat and I were discussing our understanding of a historical issue. Christine said, and he called me an idiot because I disagree with his understanding. I know he's a senior political analyst, but is he allowed to speak to me like that? I'm not an idiot, am I? Okay. So you have a young person and a seasoned analyst that obviously were in a conflict, and you're in the middle of it. You're the project manager. You're in the middle of it. Pat and Christine both report to you on the project. So what do? If you were Jamie, how would you handle this? Right? How would you handle this if you were Jamie? How should you respond to Christine? Should you speak to Pat? Whatever you do, what are the consequences? Okay, so I'm going to send you into a breakout room randomly. So let's see, we have, how many folks do we have? 8. I'm going to create 4 breakout rooms, and each of you will automatically be sent. Actually, I'm going to create 3 breakout rooms. Each of you will be sent into the breakout room. Have a discussion. I'm going to give you less than 5 minutes. Have a discussion, make a couple notes. When we come back, unmute. I'll close the room in about 5 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes. You'll come back and discuss it further. Okay, here you go. And go ahead and accept. You should get a note to join the breakout room. Go ahead and accept it, and then I'll bring you back in about 5 minutes. Let's go to, can I get a volunteer? I'll sign somebody to change it, but give me a little, can I get a volunteer from anybody to discuss what you found? Edward, do you want to talk?
Sure. You know, I think unanimously our group thought, first off, you need to get all sides of the story. It's always being when a subordinate, when anyone comes to you with that type of concern, it's empathy, it's concern, and that they are heard. Real, what we have to then in management, what we have to look at as a leader is what their perception is very real, but also the perception of what the sender sent as a message is very real. Somewhere in the middle lies reality. Was this a one-off? Was something going on? Or is this indicative of a pattern? We have to investigate. So while we want to be supportive, take their concern to heart and give it its due diligence, we also have to see that there can't be a rush to judgment. And kind of our last thing we commented was, you know, if there's anything that Johnny Depp and Amber Heard fiasco is showing us is rushing judgment has dire consequences.
Yes. Good insight. So you would listen, you would gain information, you'd try to understand the facts and distinguish those from perspective, right? Good. Right.
Far more accomplished by listening than speaking.
There you go. How about Kyra? Kyra, can you and your team, do you want to add something?
We totally agree with Edward. We want to get a resolution from the situation. So we would talk with Christine, hear her side, as well as go and hear Pat's side, and then come to a common ground where we, resolve the situation, and then also narrow in that, disrespect is not tolerated, because that doesn't make a good team. When you disrespect one another, that shouldn't be tolerated at any level.
Right. Good. So you're a little angry with being called, Christine being called an idiot. That's not acceptable in the workplace or any workplace in any area, right?
Yeah, in a way, it's regardless of if she was actually called an idiot or not. Like, it doesn't exactly matter what words he was using. It's the point of like disrespect in the workplace. Like, that was definitely like something that was coming across, and that's in a way is very unprofessional.
Good. So I'm going to give you, I want to present a couple more slides, and then I'm going to give you my insight in how to deal with this. So sit tight. Good insight. Thank you so much for those that participated and those that shared. Let's dive in a little bit in the material. I'm not going to let myself off the hook. I'm going to give you my perspective on this, but I want to continue this discussion on servant leadership first. and it might drive you to understand where my perspective is on this. So this is in a nutshell. I really like this book. This tells you what servant leadership really is all about in a nutshell. And this is the 7 pillars of servant leadership, written by James Sipe and Don Frick. And it goes along to say that, well, what is a servant leader? Well, a servant leader they have skills. You know, they have personality traits. They have leadership and management skills. And how do they use those? Well, first and foremost, they want to influence their employees in a very positive way. They're concerned about their career goals. They're concerned that the job they've asked them to do is enriching their careers and enriching their job experience. But we cannot forget about our customers. Our customers are the users of the product, the users of our services, right? Our stakeholders. We have to still create those services and products that our customers need and want. So we've got to understand what they need. And we also have to understand the community as a whole. Are we creating products and in such a way to minimize the negative impacts on the environment, for example? Are we following all the rules, the regulations, the building codes, whatever you're involved in? Are we following it, or are we having a positive impact on the community that we're serving? And all of this works well when we work for an organization that strategically believes in these things. So in other words, they believe that employees and customers in the community are an important part of the jobs that they do and the products and the services that they create. So it works well. Not every organization is concerned about employees. A lot of organizations, first and foremost, it's product, right? However we get there. But does the organization have a culture that supports this thinking? Is it built in their strategic plan that they will create products that, like, for example, that minimize the impact on the environment, or maximize their ability to meet regulatory standards, or to provide products that are generally useful, not only to the customers, but the community as a whole? So what are the characteristics of a good servant leader? I'm going to work from the middle and work out. A good servant leader is a skilled communicator and a compassionate collaborator. Now, Edward and his group, I heard Kyra and her group say the same thing. We want to understand what's going on here. We first of all want to seek, Stephen Covey said, to be understood, we must seek to understand. So before you can deal with the conflict, what are the facts? We need to communicate. We need to communicate skillfully. We want to practice good active listening, ask good questions. We want to collaborate. Good servant leaders don't feel like they have to dictate everything that goes on in their project or in their organization. We're very much interested in the ideas and the thoughts of the folks that are working for us and with us. So we collaborate because there are multiple ideas that will add value to the organization, not just ours. So we're not afraid to collaborate. We're not afraid for different perspectives, right? As a matter of fact, we encourage it because we know if we get that good collaboration, the customer is going to benefit. And the employees really enjoy working in a team and improving the common good. We showed that earlier. A servant leader has foresight. We're able to see consequences. just like Edward pointed out to us before. We're able to see consequences to our actions and to the actions of our team. We don't act impulsively. A servant leader is a people person. In project management, I teach a lot of PMP prep, project management certification, and Agile, and all kinds of technical project management, risk assessment. But I tell my students, when rubber hits the road, we're in the people business. Our job is to support our customers and make their dream come true, if you will, and use and enhance the experience of our employees as we do that. A servant leader is a systems thinker. We respect processes. We respect procedures and methodologies, because that's the way work gets done most effectively. If there's a method and a process to the madness. Okay. And to do all this, it really helps and is mandatory that servant leaders are people of character. We're not afraid to say, hey, this is unethical. We're not afraid to politely pull Pat aside, assuming Pat did call Christine an idiot. We're not afraid to say, hey, Pat, look, for starters, this is unacceptable. What's going on with you? The next question is there something else going on? And I think Kyra and Edward both brought this up. Why did this go on? Why did you say this? It might be, like you said, it might be a one-off. It might be a one instance. He had a bad day or he had some bad news at home. This case study that you just did, we dive in great detail into that case study in the actual one-day course. So the servant leader leads with moral authority. We're not afraid to say, no, this is unethical. We can't do this. Or this is immoral. This is wrong. We're not just following the leader. So it works well that way. And a good servant leader is always practicing good emotional intelligence. Now, what is emotional intelligence? Let's compare it to IQ, intellectual quotient. IQ is most of your life, your IQ on most people doesn't change. It's the same in most of your life. You can't become more intelligent. You could learn more, you can educate yourself, but your intelligence is fairly stagnant through your life. Now, emotional intelligence is different. This emotional intelligence you can learn and you can become better at. So what is it? Emotional intelligence is first of all, it starts with understanding what you're feeling. Understanding where you are and what's going on with you. In other words, if I were Jamie, I might be angry that Pat did this. I might be angry that Christine came to me and didn't handle this herself. I might be angry. So first of all, the first step is to understand what it is I'm feeling. It's very normal to be angry. We all get angry at times. The question is, when you feel angry, how do you handle it? What comes out to the rest of the world when you're angry? And that's the issue. So how do you handle it? A good servant leader practices self-control. So I'm not going to start yelling and screaming when there's mistakes made on my project, right? That's just not going to help anybody. Let me share a story with you. Back when I was actually an employee, I was running a PMO for a fairly large company. And the executive vice president, he decided that he wanted to get a project review for all of the projects. And there must have been about 25 projects that we needed to review. So my team of about six project managers, each of them gave a review of their 4 or 5 projects that they were managing. And one particular incident, one of my project managers, and she was a top-notch PM. I mean, she knew and she controlled everything. She knew the schedule, she knew the end date, she knew the issues, she managed the risks. I mean, good textbook project manager, right? And it was her turn to deliver one of her projects. And she said at the beginning of her session, she said, I have nothing to report on this one. There's just, I don't know what's going on. It's in limbo right now. And the VP hit the roof. I mean, I'm talking yelling, screaming at her, literally undressing. There must have been 20 people in the room. He's undressing her, so to speak, in the room. He's screaming at me right through it, and he's screaming at anybody that would listen to him. I came here to get a status report and you bring me nothing? Nothing? We need to get this job done, And he's yelling and screaming. And fortunately, it was before lunch, right? And we took a break for an hour to go to lunch. And I'm just overwhelmed. So I then on the way onto my office, I stopped off at the cubicle of this project manager. She's in absolute tears. I mean, not just whimpering, I mean, just full out bawling, right? And and being a dumb guy, I tried to tell her, hey, it's okay, it's okay. And she says, Joe, I need some space right now. Right? So what was wrong with that? What was wrong with that exercise? Number one, the VP, he showed terrible self-control. Terrible. Now, what should he have done? In retrospect, I would have had a lot more respect for him if he had said, hey, look, Joe, hey, look, project manager, hey, I came here for an overview. And I'm really disappointed. I'm really disappointed. This project is still important. The work we do is important. My knowledge and my understanding is important for me to, do my job. And I got nothing from you, right? I got nothing from you. So what he did, he just shut it down. Instead of being mild, I wouldn't, if I were him, that's the way I would have handled it. So what he did was he shut everybody down. So where am I going to him if I have a future problem? Probably not. Why? Be chewed out, right? So good self-management, being transparent with yourself, wanting to see the organization move forward, because that organization was not going to move forward based upon his performance. So what he did, he refused to empathize. He didn't ask, well, tell me why you bring me nothing. What's going on? Are you overworked? Is it an issue that I need to be around with? He didn't ask why this was happening. He certainly wasn't approachable, because basically everybody feared him. In general, everybody feared him, right? And I remember, from what I knew about him, this was not an uncommon, I mean, he imposed fear on everybody. That was his management style, right? So why did he do it wrong? At least in my opinion. And why is that? It's, first of all, he was an autocrat. He was top down, right? And in doing so, he broke this down. He had no influence after that. People couldn't come to him and say, well, I got some issues, or I can't do this or can't do that, because they were terrified. So he lost his ability to coach and mentor. He certainly didn't handle the conflict well. And influence, yeah, people may have gotten the job done and worked, but mostly out of fear, not out of interest for the common good, right? Was he collaborative? Did he practice good teamwork? You can be frustrated with somebody and express it without the person, and actually the person leaving the room thinking that, I get it now. Thank you for putting me back on track. And he didn't do that. Okay. So good emotional intelligence is understanding, again, what you feel, how you're going to manage it, the impact if you manage it properly. If you're listening, you will create a sense of approachability. And we have to understand the value of relationships, especially in project management work. Relationships are huge. I want my team to approach me. If they have a problem or they've made a mistake, I want to help them resolve it, not fear them or not have them fear me because they made a mistake. It's all about what? Solving the problem to enhance the employee experience as well as create a better product. And you will get there if you can practice all of these things collectively. Any questions or comments? Okay. So what does a good servant leader, what do they do? Well, for starters, it's okay to seek power. It's okay to want to influence, to improve the common good. Whatever that is, to create better products, to do better services, to create the common good versus achieve personal gain. If you're only doing it because you want to make lots of money or get promoted, that really doesn't meet the definition of a servant leader. Now, put it down in context. We all want to be promoted. We all want to succeed. It's how you do it that's the issue, how we do it. Servant leaders are humble. They're confident, not arrogant, but confident. They're truthful. And this is what's missing in our society, especially in our politics. This is what's missing, the ability to be truthful. So why are we not truthful? Because we have the attitude that we must win at all costs, right? A servant leader is not afraid to compete. A servant leader wants to succeed, wants to beat the competition to the market, wants to do a better job than the project managers in their organization, but they are not willing to lie, manipulate, and con along the way. A servant leader knows where that line is. We take accountability. We are not perfect. When we make a mistake, we say it. And when our team makes a mistake, we create a culture that allows them to feel comfortable in saying, hey, Joe, I screwed this up. Okay, how did you screw this up? Let's talk about it. Let's figure out a solution, right? What did this cost us? Oh, it cost us $10,000 to fix. Well, that's a lot of money, but that's a good training experience. We just spent $10,000 to train you on how to do this better next time. That's the upside of mistakes, right? Servant leaders are interested in the personal growth. In the last 15 years, I've been an instructor for a living, and it's probably been the most satisfying years of my career because I help people get certified in project management. I help give them a different perspective in leadership like I'm doing here. And it's helped me grow, you know, as a leader, as a president, as a CEO, as an instructor, right? We enjoy that. I enjoy that. A good servant leader defines success differently. Success does not necessarily equal money or wealth. A servant leader defines success as the degree to which an organization or a leader has a positive, healthy impact on the stakeholder community. Now, wealth, now there's no money in that discussion, in that sentence, in that definition. Wealth, it's okay to become wealthy. If you do this, and you find yourself with this, well, more power to you. All right. But wealth in and of itself is not, in my view, is not necessarily the definition of success in and of itself. There are plenty, I can think of plenty of very, very wealthy people that frankly, I wouldn't invite to dinner. I wouldn't call them. Now, I'm not a judgmental person, but based upon historically, based upon their attitudes and performance, just because they're wealthy doesn't make them successful in my mind. And servant leaders are not afraid to think this way. All right, so what would my response be? And I think that you all hit it. You all did pretty well as servant leaders answering this. I would, first of all, the thing I would do with Christine, I would make sure, Christine's in tears. And if you read this last sentence, she says, I'm not an idiot, am I? Well, she's angry at being called an idiot, but she's actually thinking, I might be stupid, right? And I immediately, I'm going to shut down that deception. I'm going to say to Christine, look, you're a very valuable part of this, assuming I'm not lying. Let's assume everything I'm about to say about Christine is true, because you never want to mislead, even to make somebody feel better. So I would say, hey, Christine, look, you're a valuable part of this team. I know that you're gaining experience. I get that, right? But you're doing good work here. We need your work. You are not an idiot. We don't hire idiots in our company. I would never bring you onto my team if I thought you were an idiot. You are absolutely not an idiot, okay? And make that clear to her, number one. And number two, I would say, and many of you, and I think Edward and his group said this, hey, I want to find out more. So first thing I would do is, she's in the dumps, and I would help build her up a little bit, because I got to send her back out into the workplace to continue working and continue working with Pat. So before I throw Pat under the bus, right, I'm going to have a conversation with him separately. And I'm going to very politely invite him in. And I'm going to say to him, hey, Pat, look, I heard you had an issue. You and Christine had a conversation, and she's kind of upset about it. What's going on here? Right? Now, Pat's going to come in probably one of two ways. He's going to come in, he might come in very humble. He might say to me, hey, Joe, or hey, Jamie, look, I blew it. Look, I'm sorry. Look, I just, I had a bad day. My wife, I had to take her to the doctors. We're a little concerned, and she just hit me at the wrong time. And look, I'm always being approached by, our team, and normally I'm pretty calm. Normally I'm pretty even tempered, but she just hit a chord with me. And he might even, if he has some level of character, he might even say, because remember, he's almost 20 years older than Jamie. He might say, humbly, look, Jamie, I'll talk to Christine. I'll smooth this over. He goes, I just messed up. And if he says that, I'm going to pat Pat on the back, and I'm going to say, okay, I might ask him. I'll probably say, hey, did you call her a name? Did you insult her in any way? I would probably stay away from the word idiot, because if I say, did you call her an idiot? I might make the situation worse. So if he didn't say it, now it's worse. If he did say it, now he's embarrassed. So I might say something like, was there any insults, any insults exchanged or anything like that, and see how he responds to that. So if he remains humble, I would probably say, hey, do you want me to intervene in this? And he probably will say, no, I'll take care of it, Joe. Yeah, Christine, she's a good kid. And I said, good. And I would remind Pat how valuable he is as well, and how his tone and his emotional intelligence needs to be managed so that we work together to help this customer. Now, Pat could come in the other way. He could come in obstinate. He could come in and say, you know, I'm so sick of these young people. You know, they're all, you know, they're all liberals, and they come in and they, you know, ask me questions, and I'm so tired of it. And he comes in obstinate. I'm going to take a very different approach with him. I'm probably going to tell him, well, and it depends how he responds. If he continues, I'm going to say, whoa, wait a minute. Pat, what happened in this conversation with Christine? Was there insults passed? And he might admit to it, he might not. Then I'm going to probably, if he's obstinate, remember, he's volunteering this obstination. And I'm going to tell him, number one, this is unacceptable. I'm going to be calm. I'm not going to share. What you don't want to do in these situations is match his anger. Because when two people are yelling and screaming at us, we call that the child-to-child relationship. Two children arguing at each other is a child-to-child. So when he comes in obstinate and he's whining, he's complaining, I have to remain as a parent. He's arguing as a child. I have to remain the parent. So I'm going to stay very calm. I'm going to say, Pat, let's look at the impacts of how you handled this with her. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Number one, she came in here in tears. Number two is she's a good team member and she's doing the job. And number three is we're trying to create a good work environment. And in one conversation, you damage that. All right. And I'm going to bring him. And if he still stays obstinate, I might even at that point, and he remains, if he's so obstinate that he says, I don't want to talk to any of these people anymore, then I think I might engage HR. That's the worst case scenario. But in the meantime, I would try to work it out with him. Okay. Any questions? Any thoughts? Okay, we're going to go until, we go until about 2:30. So give me 30 minutes here because it shouldn't even take that long. I want to have a discussion with you about, as project managers, as leaders in general, and frankly, as citizens in this country, I believe we have a real issue with understanding the difference between truth, ideology or perception, and opinion, and lastly, deception. So let's define them first. Truth is the body of real things, events or facts. It is undeniable. This is right out of the dictionary, this first sentence. There is little wiggle room, right, for truth. Now, perception, on the other hand, this is my definition, or Webster calls it a point of view. My definition, it gives personal meaning to truth, right? People have different perspectives. Well, one person might hear Pat yell at Christine and say, well, he's not yelling, he's pretty calm. Another person might say, well, he's absolutely chewing her out. So perception gives personal meaning. We see this on the Republican and the Democrat side. They take a truth and they have a personal perspective to it. And we'll give you an example of that. A lie is a lie is a lie. It's deceptive. And as leaders, as project managers, as servant leaders, our job is to understand truth, respect people's opinions, open-minded to people's opinions, and then crush deception. So here's an example we've all been through the last, the last 4 years, or the last 2-3 years or so, right? COVID. This is what I call the COVID truth board. So what happened, especially in early 2020, in the first 2 quarters of 2020, we learned and we started finding out that people were getting sick and many were dying, or many are dying and many had died. That's an absolute. Okay, so there's just no getting away. Notice when I defined that, I didn't say COVID, but people during that time, an unusually large number of people were getting sick and were dying. All right, that's undeniable. The question now becomes, what do we do about it as it relates to our lives? So from that, we got two perspectives. As a servant leader, we find truth first, okay? And then we entertain, engage with, collaborate with to understand different perspectives. So what were the different ideologies, opinions, perceptions, whatever term you want to use? Well, one side said, close all the businesses. Close all the businesses. Everybody has to wear a mask. We got to quarantine, right? The other side says, no, open businesses. Keep it open. We've dealt with disease before. Masks take away our freedoms. Don't take away optional masks. Don't quarantine. Go out to dinner. Have fun, right? So a servant leader, if you're in charge of deciding whether to open your project or not, or close your project, right? You should listen to both sides, entertain both sides. As servant leaders, we want to keep an open mind for these different opinions and ideologies. Now, that said, it doesn't mean you can't choose a side. You might feel strongly that businesses need to close. You might feel strongly that we don't quarantine. So what do you use? You, first of all, you listen, you ask questions, you engage, you collaborate, and then you influence, you persuade, you share your ideas. Your ideas do matter. You're not a robot, right? And your opinions do matter, and then you make a decision. That said, along the way, we must crush deception. If you remember during that time, some people were saying vaccines, the COVID's a hoax. It's just a hoax, right? Vaccines are tracking people. Now, we laugh, maybe, I don't know, but I've got a close family member of mine that actually believes that the vaccines, that the government is tracking them and tracing their whereabouts based upon the vaccine. Okay, a lot of people feel this. That is pure and unadulterated deceptions and lies. Now, be careful. I am not saying if somebody feels the vaccine is tracking them, they may not be lying to you, but they're representing an untruth. They may actually believe that, but we as leaders, and you're in charge of this project to make these decisions, you have to squash this as quickly as possible because it's not real. It is not real. There is no evidence that COVID's a hoax. There is no evidence that the vaccines are tracking people or tracking their whereabouts. So it starts with you understanding the truth, you understanding, having done the research to understand truth. But we have to be open-minded to all the perspectives. So here's my perspective on these things. Truth in our society now is being replaced with perspective and ideology. There are folks out there that want you to believe that their perspective is truth. You hear that on the news every night. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. You will hear, you are being misled. You are being replaced. You are being lied to, right? They want you to believe that their perspective is truth. They are different, and we need to distinguish the differences. When we become too entrenched in our belief systems and our ideologies, when you believe that, or your team member believes that their ideology or their opinion is the only opinion, they allow themselves to be susceptible to lies. They will believe anything that supports their opinion. We want to break that down. That's in and of itself, that's deceptive. We've lost respect for other ways of thinking. We've lost respect that people think differently than us when we should open our minds. We've lost the ability to compromise. Winning is all that matters. That's a mistake. There are people in our society, and I'm not just talking politicians, they will lie, they will manipulate, they will cheat in order to win. And that a servant leader has to recognize that and discourage that. Truth can be found from a place of peace. Now, this is me. There are times in my career where I've been inundated with all of this, right? All of this opinion, deception. You know, what do you do? How do you distinguish what's real and unreal? And what I recommend, and this works for me, I recommend that we find a place of peace. Now, what do I mean by that? If you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Maslow said at the top of those needs, which is very rare and hard for most of us to get there, we are self-actualized. By self-actualized, I mean we're in perfect harmony with the universe, right? We're free from prejudice. We're respected on our jobs. We have a great home life. We're open-minded. We're good listeners, right? Get to that place of peace. Now, for me, I surround myself in a 5-10 minute meditation where I get in touch with God and I say, show me what the truth is here, because I can't find it. Or in your world, maybe you go to the teachings of Martin Luther King or Moses or Buddha or somebody that helps you find truth. Doesn't matter. I know what works for me, but it doesn't matter. Whatever enables to allow you to sit and see the distinguish between a lie and an opinion and truth. Get the facts. And a place of peace will help you get there. Okay? And if you can do that, remember what our job is. As servant leaders, our job is to start and seek truth first, then listen to and respect ideology, lastly, crush deception. Okay. Trying to flip screens here. So before we move on, I want to play a video for you that I found online. And I want you to read, don't listen to the politics. Don't listen to the politics in this video. I want you to listen and watch how the moderator or how the handles this situation. So I'm going to put it on, bring up my YouTube, and hopefully you'll hear it. Whoops. Okay, here we go.
And you look at those pictures of the children dying just because Putin's such a thug, a murderous thug.
All right, let's switch to politics now, because there's a lot that we've got to look forward to between now and November the 8th. You recently put out an 11-point plan to rescue America, two of the big points of which are, quote, all Americans should pay some income tax to have skin in the game, even if a small amount. Currently, over half of Americans pay no income tax. It also says all federal legislation sunsets in 5 years. If a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. So that would raise taxes on half of Americans and potentially sunset programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Why would you propose something like that in an election year?
Sure. Well, John, that's, of course, the Democrat talking points. It's a
No, it's in the plan. It's in the plan.
But here's let's think about reality for a second. First of all, let's talk about Medicare.
But Senator, hang on.
John.
So it's not a Democratic talking point. It's in the plan.
And also in the plan, it says we ought to every year talk.
Oh, okay. I wanted to stop it there. So again, this is not about political plans. This is not about Rick Scott's plan. What I wanted you all to see was how this moderator handled deception. Rick Scott said it's a Democrat talking point. And what did the moderator do? He shut it down. He shut the deception and the lie down the second it came up. And the listeners were able then at that time to listen to the plan without thinking it was a Democratic conspiracy, right? So he shut down, he encouraged truth. He wanted to hear the Senate. It really wasn't truth, it was his perspective of the problem. He wants to bring America back, and he has a solution. He has a perspective or an ideology, but he wanted to get the senator out of deception. And I think this was, again, it's not about the plan. You know, everybody has plans, right? But it's not about that. But I thought this guy handled this really well because he recognized the lie and deception and he stopped it rather than allow it to permeate through the rest of the discussion. That's what we need to do as servant leaders. And folks, this is hard. This isn't easy. Anybody can be an autocrat. Anybody can say, you, Edward, you do this, Kyra, you do that, and you, Blaine, you take my position. That anybody can do that. That's not leadership. So instead, we want to keep an open mind, respect different perspectives, and don't allow lies in. So here's a couple of tips before we close out. Serve your team. Start recognizing, this is important. I think in our I've been a project manager now for, like I said, for like 40 years, right? And we get so focused on the end product that sometimes we forget that there are people around us, even in failure, that are working with passion, commitment, and teamwork, that maybe we should reward that. Hey, I know this project didn't go like you were planning, Edward, but you know what? You showed great commitment. I really appreciate the teamwork that you provided, and we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. It always gets worked out, right? Look to hire people that demonstrate these skills, because when your team is passionate, commitment, they have a sense of teamwork, customer service, you're going to succeed more than you fail. Okay? Because project work and product development still comes down to people. So we want to acquire people with these skills. And maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't hire the most technical person first. Maybe we should maybe sacrifice a little technical skills for more people skills, more teamwork, commitment. Seek to understand the whole person, not just the worker. I've had managers, vice president levels, have the attitude that, hey, look, once you set foot in this building, we don't care what your personal life is about. We're not here to make your personal life better. We're here to get a job done. And that's been their attitude. And I really hope that that's changing. Because although we can't engage overly in somebody's personal life, but by understanding the whole person, we can often understand why they might be falling down or why they might be in trouble. So without violating personal space, without violating, HR rules, sometimes it helps to take a team member out for a beer and sit at the bar and say, so how's everything else going in your world, right? You might learn. I've been shocked in my career how much you can learn from a colleague just over a beer, sitting at the bar and just having a beer, talking about people. I don't know what it is about a bar and a beer that just drops their guards, their force fields, and they'll open up a little bit to you and enlighten you. Now, I'm not talking spying. I'm not talking so that you can manipulate. I'm talking a genuine interest in understanding what makes people think. And we have found, and this is just one little bullet point, we have to get out of this thinking that by throwing money at people, they will do a better job. Studies have shown there's no correlation. People need to be paid fairly. Now, does that mean you don't give bonuses? No. Does that mean you don't pay commissions? No. What it does mean, if we think by throwing a bonus or throwing a bonus at people, they'll perform better, I'm telling you, the studies don't show this. People, once they're paid fairly, it stops being an issue. And lastly, practice good emotional intelligence. It's not going to change overnight. I mean, if you tend to have a short fuse, right? You're not going to wake up tomorrow because Joe taught you to manage emotional intelligence. It's something that you work on and improve over time. Okay. So with that, let me close out. First of all, any questions I can address? Any thoughts, any comments, right? Okay. I wanted to bring up the two courses that closely relate to this topic. Is our Managing Teams with Servant Leadership, right? And Effective Communications Techniques. We do have enrollment in June and August for both of these courses. The Managing Teams with Servant Leadership course goes into much more detail. We do a role play. We have a couple of role plays where you'll actually be a project manager dealing with an issue, right? We dig deeper into the studies of motivation and morale building. We dig a little bit deeper into the characteristics of a good servant leader and effective communications. We talk about, team building. We talk about understanding personalities. We even do a DISC test where you'll be able to understand through a series of questions a team member's personality. We talk about emotional intelligence in this course as well. And both of these courses kind of go hand in hand, but they are separate courses. So, and we dig deeper into these topics. So if you're interested, and I hope you are pursuing this, I feel strongly the more I'm in this business, the more I see the value of leading differently, leading away from autocrats and towards independent thinking. And I think it's very effective. So I hope you learned something today. I know I did. I hope I enjoyed working with you in this limited time. There's my email address. All right, and there's our website. Feel free to call me if you'd like to learn more. Now, those of you that are registering PDUs, a PDU is a professional development unit that certified project managers need to earn. If you go on to PMI's website, you should be able to register with this number. Okay. If for some reason that doesn't work, just to put a description of the course, right? Put in my ATP. I'm a PMI registered authorized training provider. my ATP number is 3921. So you just put in the company name and the number and describe the class, and you should easily get 1.5 PDUs. Okay, now if you don't, call me and I'll create a certificate for you to verify. And if you'd like that anyway, send me an email and I'll be happy to get you a certificate that you attended, and that will help you as well. Okay. With that, if there are no questions, thanks again so much for attending. I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the limited time we had together, and I hope I can get to know you in a future course. Thanks, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye.